Ben and Chelsea, what did you want to be when you grew up? When you were kids?
I wanted to be a fire dog. I really did. The Dalmatian that rode on the back of the fire truck. Like, I really wanted to be that. And having been raised by hippies, they did not dissuade me from the idea because they didn't want to limit my bliss and my potential. So until the time I was like 3 or 4, really believed that I could be a Dalmatian when I grew up. And, at least it was a working dog, right? But I remember as a kid, like, practicing that. Like barking like a Dalmatian. There was an old fire truck at this park, and I would get on the back and I'd practicing with the intention that it would be something viable I could do for a living when I got older. And obviously I will never be a fire dog, and in that sense, no matter what I do with my life, I will always be a failure.
I wanted to be Harrison Ford. Specifically Indiana Jones. And from the time I was in 3rd grade, I had an adult-sized fedora that I would wear around on my bean of a head. And I had a subscription to Archaeology magazine, and after a while I had also a leather satchel in which I kept bones and feathers and precious gems. And then I had a bullwhip that I would crack Coke cans off a fence post with.
Bones, like actual bones?
Human bones,
Human
yes.
bones. So cool.
And then I went on 2 expeditions when I got into high school, one with the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry and the other with the University of Oregon. And the Indiana Jones fantasy gradually dissolved. Like, there were no Nazis to do battle with. There was no lost Ark of the Covenant, and there were no beautiful women. In the scablands of eastern Oregon, there were only snakes. It was just me and the snakes.
So,
Beautiful women, that's a metaphor for snakes.
so and Ben, when you were a kid, did it just happen all of a sudden that your voice dropped? Did you have a high voice as a kid?
You should have heard me before I got a vasectomy. You could feel me more than hear me. It's like in Jurassic Park when the T-Rex is coming and the water glass trembles. That's what happens inside of you.
There's a video, if any of you haven't seen it, of Ben reading Goodnight Moon on YouTube. It's scary.
I feel bad for my kids. Would you want me to read you a bedtime story?
Okay, so both of...
I would. Wouldn't all of you? Yes.
That can be arranged for a small fee.
How do you not make $1 billion a year just doing the inner world? Why aren't you doing that? That guy died, a year ago. That's
I know,
open.
I killed him. I ate him.
You should be doing that. They
Have
pay
your
money
people
for
talk
that.
to my people. I just use it to terrify people right now.
It's hard not to just spend this whole time talking about Ben's voice. Both of you are not afraid to write about violent things in your writing. People get maimed, killed, they disappear. How does it feel to write about these acts of violence?
Well, they say write what you know.
Yeah, I think it is cathartic, in a way, to maim and murder and disappear people. No, all of you, you've been, I had, our call time was 5:30 today, which meant that we had to leave, I live in Southeast, I had to leave at 5, and I was in traffic. You know, like trying to get up here like on 39th on Cesar Chavez Boulevard. And like it was like so backed up and I wanted to murder the person in front of me who was not taking the left. Like we missed a whole green light because he was not taking the left, like 30 cars ahead. Like really? But then I was like, okay, it's fine because I get to go home and kill someone tonight. Right? And that makes it okay. And when you read like the goriest aspects of my books, you know, like that, like clearly I'm working through something. But I maintain that like thriller writers, I think in particular, are some of the happiest people you ever want to meet because we work through that on the page.
Is that true, Ben?
Well, I think the only danger is that it has to be in service of story, that I run into in a lot of workshops that I've taught, what I call gorenography, where the violence is obviously there to sort of titillate not just the reader, but it seems like the author is getting too much pleasure out of it.
What's wrong with that, Ben?
Is this going to turn into a cage match? I hope so.
So you've both written things that have been optioned for TV. Do you have something that are coming up in film or television from your works?
Yeah, my stuff is always, it's sort of in perpetual option in some form or another. It's in development. So currently, my Archie Sheridan Gretchen Lowell series, I write 2 series of thrillers. And the main one is the Archie Sheridan Gretchen Lowell books, and those are in development for a TV thing. And like actually, the guy who's writing, he wrote the pilot, is somebody who worked for FX, and when it was in development with FX, wrote the pilot. And like I love him because when I went to his IMDb page, the thing that it says about him on IMDb is that he's a gay Finnish vegan. I was like, oh, done. Yeah, you can have it, just whatever. I don't know, he's fantastic. And he knows the work probably as well as I do. Like he lives in the head of all these characters. And then the other books, the Kik Lanigan series is in development, also with a whole other network. So we'll see.
Cool.
Yeah, I've got something in development too with Fox TV. It's an adaptation of Red Moon, the novel that came before this, and Akiva Goldsman, who won an Oscar for A Beautiful Mind, is co-producing and co-writing that. But you never know, right, until it's on the screen. But I kind of took things into my own hands and sold recently a show, an original idea for which I'm the producer, creator, and writer, and it's a Western, sort of nouveau Western set in the oil fields of North Dakota, and that sold to Starz. So I'm in the middle of revising the pilot right now, and the next step is going out to North Dakota and scouting locations and hiring actors. So we'll see.
Right?
Awesome.
That's fancy.
All right, just to wrap it up, what's the longest you've ever taken to return something to the library?
Okay, the longest time I've ever taken to return something to the library. I have a book that was due back in April 1981 at the Bellingham Public Library. And it is a Nancy Drew book, The Mystery of the Glowing Eye, which is like seriously, the best Nancy Drew book. And I speak from experience. Like, I read all of the Nancy Drew books many times, and this is the very best, Mystery of the Glowing Eye, in which Ned is kidnapped immediately at the beginning, and this helicopter crashes in Nancy's front yard, and she goes, like, obviously as one would, there's a helicopter crashed in your front yard. She investigates, and there's a note in the helicopter that has crashed in her front yard that says, there's no people, just a note. And the note says, beware the Cyclops, Ned. Right? So she investigates and has to rescue Ned, and I loved that book so much I could not bear to return it, and I read it so many times that it's actually like it was one of the yellow-spined hardbacks, but it sort of turned blue from age. And I still had it, and maybe like 5 years ago, I was giving a speech at some librarian conference, and I mentioned this fact that I had this book out so long, And afterwards, these women came up to me from a table, and they said, "We're with the Bellingham Public Library." And I thought, oh, shit. And they gave me amnesty. I know, they did. They said, "We officially give you amnesty for this title." And I still have it. It still has the card, and it's chewed on the corners of the hardback, and there's a note inside that says, like, "chewed by dog or child." It's one of my most prized possessions.
Well, this is all fines forgiven, so double amnesty for you. Yeah, Ben.
My kids go to the library all the time. My wife goes to the library all the time, but I never go because I can't help but write all over the books that I read. I'm a very slow reader, and I can't help it. I have like this compulsion to scribble all over the sidelines, scribble all over the margins, so that if you look at a page from something I read, it looks almost like corralled in barbed wire or something. And as a result of this, my wife will not even look at any book that I have read. If I recommend it to her, she has to go get another copy. She says I take the fun out of reading.
Well, it's been very fun talking to both of you. Thank you very much.